Hello, everybody. I'm back again, and today I have with me Dr. Donte Vaughn. Dr. Don, how are you today?
I'm doing well, Scott. How are you?
Doing fantastic. Now, I had the pleasure of having Dr. Don at my Vistage group and to speak about culture. And he's got a variety of thoughts around that, including the seven pillars of culture. But Don, before we dive into that, tell us a little bit more about yourself and what we should know.
Sure. Thank you for having me again, and thank you for inviting me into your Vistage group. I had a great time and just enjoyed sharing our thoughts and perspectives. So, I serve as the founder and president of a company called Light Point Advisors, and we work with organizations throughout the country and who are seeking to optimize or maximize the potential of their executive leadership teams and even mid-level leadership in terms of how they engage, how they interact, how they make decisions in the business every day. And that includes everything from supporting your strategic planning and alignment to how do we improve organizational infrastructure and development practices to how they work more effectively as an executive leadership team or senior leadership team, right? And all the strategies and approaches that come with sort of that leadership development focus and efforts, right? And a big part of that includes, this impact on workplace culture. And prior to my work, or I should say, in tandem with my work with LightPoint, I support my business partners in the work that they do in the human capital management space and the management operating system space as well. And so it's really this premise of how do we provide support, tools, resources to help leaders show up more effectively in and outside of their organizations?
Very good. Well, let's go back to some of the topics that you touched on in the meeting. You wrote the book on culture. What was the name of your book again?
It's called From Culture to Culture, the system to define, implement, measure, and improve company culture, and with my co-author, Randall Powers.
Great. And in the Vistage meeting, you talked about the seven pillars of culture. Can you touch on some of those and give us a flavor of what you feel is really important?
Sure. I mean, one of the things that, Randall and I really highlight is this stagnation when we explore the impact that organizations are trying to have on workplace culture. The reality is, over the last 2 decades, the national and global engagement rates have relatively remained consistent, somewhere around the 30 to 35% range. And we started asking ourselves in the scope of the work that we do independently and together, why is that? And we recognize that organizations have failed to effectively define, implement, and measure, thus improving their company culture because they're looking at one, the wrong indicators. Two, they're treating culture in a very abstract and ambiguous manner, right? And three, there's a lack of a system, right? And unless and until we start to evaluate workplace culture, leadership culture as a strategic pillar of their business, and they're going to struggle to have impact on the reactionary metrics that many employee engagement surveys or pulsing surveys provide to you, right? It's typically misaligned with their desired leadership culture and the questions that they ask. Oftentimes, they're circumstantial to the current state of or disposition of the employee responding, and they're still this very ambiguous and almost cookie cutter approach to soliciting the impact of their leadership culture. So we said, what happens if we took a more operationalized approach to impacting company culture? What if we looked at company culture through the same lens you look at other critical operational pillars of your business? And my partner Randall really came up with this concept of, you know, taking this operationalized culture performance management approach. And that's really what led to our collaboration around how do we then include understanding through the scientific lens of human behavior and learning theory that says, okay, what if I got to the root cause of impacting company culture? And our root cause is leadership, right? Leadership behavior, right? The values we share, the language we use, the behaviors we display. That's what makes up company culture. So how do we impact that and build a system around it? And that's what those 7 pillars speak to.
Yeah, it was interesting because one of the points that I took away from your presentation is constantly reinforcing what your values are. And, I'll say guilty as charged where we've got company values. We actually post them throughout the organization, but we don't reinforce it as well as we should. Bring it up in meetings and as we come up with themes of meetings, tie that back to culture. And that was one of the things that I took away from your session. But what else can executives do to reinforce and build the culture?
Sure. I mean, as you touched on, Scott, every organization who must move with integrity and intentionality around this culture that they're trying to foster, which means an evaluation of your value system as a foundation to how you establish behavioral standards and expectations for your leaders in the first place, and not moving about it through this lens of presumption that your leaders have a capacity to actually embody or exhibit those behaviors in the first place, or having vague or arbitrary definitions for your core values without actionable, articulable statements around what it means to show up and truly embody those core values, right? So having that value system as a foundation and really exploring how does that value system connect to my organization's ability to fulfill its purpose, its vision, its mission, its strategies. So start foundationally with that. And then once you have that foundation, that's what we consider our pillar one, our value system. Pillar two is getting back to those behavioral standards and expectations. It's not just good enough to say, okay, we believe in integrity or we believe in family or service. Even a general definition isn't good enough. Okay, service means this for these roles and these responsibilities within our organization. The embodiment of service looks like this. Let me define that to the extent that it becomes a standard, which means have I integrated that in my interview protocols when I'm soliciting talent for my organization? Have I integrated into my performance review process? Have I found ways to incentivize, observe, practice behaviors as it relates to the culture I'm trying to foster? And to your point, Scott, that means bringing visibility and awareness and connection, right? The third pillar to these core values and behavioral standards and expectations. So those connections then become pillar three. We can't just say it and define it. We have to help people bring a sense of awareness to when they practice the culture, which means, hey, from the time you walk in the building, where are those critical points of engagement, interaction, and decision making that enables you to foster this culture? Literally map those core critical connections for each level of leadership so that they then have a reference point that says, okay, at my next operations meeting, I want to be intentional about practicing these core values. And that's something that most organizations never quite achieve without a framework or a system. And that's just pillar three, right? Pillar four, five, and six gets into learning, practice, and measurement of culture. Now, a lot of organizations, as I alluded to earlier, look at the lagging indicators, the after effect of it. We're talking about learning, practicing, and measuring behavior, which means I've set the standard. I know where culture happens in my business and the impact I have on it. Do I have moments of self-reflection regarding how I'm embodying those core values? And do I have someone within my organization holding me accountable through observation that says, Donte showed up this way. He embodied the core value in this way. Let me give him feedback about what that looked like, the impact it had, or the inverse of that. He didn't embody these core values in this way. Let me give him feedback and give him a chance to refine it. In our book, we make a lot of references to in sports analogies because we liken the learning, practice, and measurement to that of learning, practicing, and measuring your performance in any sport. What happens when you refine that behavior? You refine it in real time. It's when the coach goes out on the field and says, or in the dugout and says, "Hey, I saw your stance. I saw your position. I saw, and this is what I would correct. Let's course correct the next time you go out there." That's how you start to really refine the behaviors that lead to the greatest impact. So that's 4, 5, and 6. Pillar 7 is an emphasis on refinement, right? It's okay. Now that I have self-reflection, now that I have feedback, let me be conscious about the areas where I have opportunity for continuous improvement. And then let me nurture that through additional learning resources and developmental opportunities. And I'm gonna go back out and I'm gonna swing at the bat again, right? So this premise of culture performance management is this operationalized approach, very similar to other approaches from a lean management context, right? How do we ensure that we have a plan, we know what our plan is, we go and apply the plan and the actions to achieve the results we want. We reflect on those results and what's the variance between where I want it to be and where I am, and then how do I work to close the gap, right? Well, the similar approach from a behavioral standpoint, that's a proactive way of ensuring the outcomes of your engagement surveys, the outcomes of some of these other lagging indicators will be where you want it to be.
Yeah. You also in the meeting made a couple of observations where the marketing message of an organization doesn't align with their values, and people stumble if the marketing message doesn't. And then backing up those values. Can
Yeah,
you give a couple of examples?
sure. I mean, you have many organizations. This initial approach to articulating their culture was derived through the lens of the marketplace. What do we think our consumers want to hear about us that would make them want to pursue our products or our services? Now, the challenge with that is how you articulate that message and how you convey it was meant to appeal to the marketplace versus saying, instead of it being just a message to my consumer, what about my talent, attraction, and retention? So how do I appeal to my prospective talent that says, hey, not because I need to message it to appeal to them. My core values, my system, the culture I'm fostering connects to my ability to fulfill my purpose, my vision, and my mission. I'm going to articulate what that is, and I'm going to articulate the experiences to validate that what I claim is actually real. And most organizations go as far as let me post my core values. And I don't even need to name one. I mean, most, right, will post at minimum their core values and they'll say, this is our culture and this is the values we believe, or these are our belief statements, versus finding avenues to represent the experience that supports those core values as foundational. Because the current marketplace, especially predominantly millennial and younger generations, they have a desire to be purpose driven. They have a desire to want to feel a part of something bigger than themselves. They have a desire to invest in experiences that nurture things within them. So validating that experience, right? Do you have testimonials? Instead of having client testimonials, what if you include employee testimonials? What if you show the examples or the measures that you use to validate your workplace culture? What if you highlight not just wage opportunity? Hey, you can earn $25 if you work for me. But what if you say, hey, let me give you an idea of all the programs we have to foster your growth, right? Here are our succession programs. Here are our learning and development programs. Here are our apprentice programs. Here are the things that, again, I don't have to tell you. I care about you and I care about your growth. One of my core values are growth. I'm going to show you through the programs, the initiatives. I'm going to show you through the comments that my team members leave, right? Those things start to really make a validating kind of point of connection. So I think there's a fundamental disconnect in the marketplace, not leveraging core values just as a marketing exercise. And then it's the actual integrity behind it, which means you have to hold your leaders accountable for embodying those things, right? So we talked about that as part of the session.
Yeah, it was When you were done and you left, I had a chance to quiz the group on what they thought, and they said you were one of the best speakers that they've had in quite some time. So
Awesome.
hats off to you.
Thank
Um,
you.
and I'm sure people that are watching this are going to want to know how to get a hold of you. What's the best way for somebody that wants to learn more about culture, maybe your book, maybe invite you to speak, and tap into your thought leadership? How do they get a hold of you?
So, one of the easiest ways, right, is we leverage this wonderful platform called LinkedIn, right? And through that, I have my, email, website, phone number, all posted there, right? So or just in message me, right? And I enjoy just sharing and dialogue and reflection of best practices. So let's do that. That's a way. And I have a direct scheduling link on my website. My website's, currently being evolved and developed, but don't hesitate to schedule some time with me. Let's have a conversation. It's free of charge, right? Let's share in our passion around what it means to drive, effective leadership culture. So that's the best way. If you just Google Dr. Donte Vaughn, you'll see different resources and videos and things available. And if you go to Amazon.com and you Google From Culture to Culture, you can type in my co-author's name, Randall Powers, or myself, Dr. Donte Vaughn. Then that will provide you with some access points to our book. It's on Audible. It's a number of different sources where you can explore this conversation around cultural performance management.
Great. Well, again, thank you for your time at the Vistage meeting. Appreciate your time today,
Thank
and
you.
wish you all the best. And yeah, look forward to putting a lot of your thoughts into practice.
Awesome, Scott. Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, all the best. Bye.